Cold-hearted billionaire Victor Sterling discovers the mysterious past of his new maid, Clara, when he accidentally sees her teaching his son a graceful dance. The truth behind Clara's ordinary appearance will change Victor and his son's lives forever. Victor Sterling, a billionaire known for his absolute control, lives in a meticulously constructed world. His days are meticulously scheduled, his business is thriving, and his mansion runs like a well-oiled machine. Surprises have no place in his life. One afternoon, as Victor passed by the large window overlooking the garden, he suddenly stopped. The sight before him made him unable to believe his eyes. His 12-year-old son, Alex, was dancing with Clara, the maid who had been working for his family for a year. Alex, a quiet and withdrawn boy since his mother's death, smiled brightly, his steps clumsy but full of enthusiasm. Clara, the simple maid, moved with surprising grace and skill. It was more than just an impromptu game, it was a lesson guided by a skilled professional. A feeling of unease rose in Victor's heart. He did not like the idea of an outsider, especially a servant, having such influence over his son. He stepped out into the garden, his steps stiff on the stone path. "What's going on?" Victor's voice was cold. Alex was silent, his smile fading. Clara calmly replied, "We're practicing dancing, Mr. Sterling." "Dance practice?" Victor raised an eyebrow. "Alex wants to learn to dance," Clara explained. Victor turned to his son, "Why didn't you tell me?" Alex bowed his head, I'm afraid you'll scold me and not let me study." Clara spoke up, "The boy has no one to practice with." Victor looked at Clara, his eyes searching. "This is none of your business." "Why did you do that?" "Because the boy asked me." Victor turned to look at Alex, who nodded. A heavy silence fell. Victor sensed something was wrong, a secret hidden beneath Clara's normal appearance. That evening, Victor sat in his office, turned on his computer, and searched for information about Clara. Her profile was spotless, nothing suspicious. But Victor's instincts were never wrong. He expanded his search, this time adding the keyword ballerina. Within seconds, an old newspaper article appeared. A photo of a young girl, her eyes shining, wearing a pure white ballet dress. Clara. The article hailed her as a rising star, an outstanding talent. But just a few months later, she suddenly disappeared without explanation. Victor leaned back in his chair, eyes still glued to the screen. Why had such a talent left the spotlight? And why was she in this house? The next morning, Victor faced Clara. He placed the newspaper down in front of her, his eyes searching. "Will you explain?" Clara looked at the photo, a flicker of confusion in her eyes. But she didn't show any surprise. She sighed and said slowly, "I lost everything." "Reason?" She was silent, then simply said, "Sometimes, there are things that are best left buried." Victor didn't believe what she said, but he didn't want to pressure her either. He understood that there were secrets in life that couldn't and shouldn't be revealed right away. Sometimes, the right time to share them came when everything was ready. Victor knew that it was important to respect her personal space, and he was willing to wait until she felt comfortable enough to tell him. In the days that followed, Victor quietly observed. He saw a clear change in Alex. The boy was no longer gloomy in the darkness of the past, but was gradually regaining his smile and confidence. And Clara, she not only taught him the dance steps, but also helped him find the joy he thought he had lost forever. One night, Victor took Alex to the theater. It was a world-class ballet performance. Alex sat there rapt, his eyes sparkling like never before. When the show ended, Victor looked at his son. "Do you like it?" Alex nodded, not taking his eyes off the stage. "Do you want to be a dancer?" The boy looked at his father, his eyes both hesitant and full of longing. Victor turned to Clara, who was standing next to him. "Can you help my son?" "Then do your best, son, I believe you will win." Clara looked at him, then at Alex. A small smile appeared on her lips. "I will do my best." After the ballet performance, Victor noticed a marked change in Alex's eyes. He was no longer withdrawn. but instead had a burning desire. Victor decided to provide the best conditions for his son, and Clara became Alex's devoted teacher. During her education, Clara gradually revealed pieces of her past. She had to undergo a process of hard work to shine on stage. She told of her years of hard work, her burning passion for ballet, and the injuries that made her leave the stage. Victor realized that behind Clara's simple appearance was a strong-willed artistic soul. One day, Victor finds an old letter in Clara's drawer. The letter was written by a mysterious man, with hateful words. Victor begins to suspect Clara's past, and decides to dig deeper. Alex improved in ballet, and he began to participate in competitions. Victor was always there, encouraging and motivating his son. The relationship between father and son became stronger than ever. During a training session, Alex suddenly got injured. Clara, with concern in her eyes, quickly ran to his side, tenderly taking care of each wound. She gently bandaged and comforted him, like a mother caring for her son. Clara's gentleness and care made Victor feel more secure than ever. He looked at Clara with eyes full of respect, realizing that her feelings for Alex were not just responsibility but also deep love. Although Clara had only been living with his family for a year, her impact on Alex was undeniable. The boy, who had lost his mother at a young age, had lived in a closed world, barely communicating and keeping to himself in his small room. But since Clara appeared, the light in Alex's eyes gradually returned. He began to open up, participate in Clara's activities and even laugh more than before. Victor, seeing the positive change in Alex, felt that Clara's feelings for the boy were not just help, but a special bond. This made him feel less worried about Alex's future, but also complicated his feelings. He realized that he had special feelings for Clara. Victor Sterling, with his cautious nature and desire to control everything, cannot ignore the mystery surrounding Clara. He wants to make sure that the woman who is taking care of his son is not hiding any dark secrets that could endanger Alex. He hired a private investigator, asking him to thoroughly investigate Clara's past, from her childhood to the present. After weeks of searching, the detective brought Victor a thick dossier. Victor flipped through the pages, devouring Clara's information. He learned that her real name was Isabella Rossi, a talented ballerina who was once expected to become a star. But then her career abruptly ended, and she disappeared without a trace. What caught Victor's attention the most was the threatening letter that Clara had hidden away. The man who wrote in the letter, with hateful words, was Clara's first love, Marco. Victor couldn't understand how a man who had loved Clara so deeply could become so cruel. Victor decided to dig deeper into Clara and Marco's relationship. He sought out Clara's old friends who had witnessed her meteoric rise in career. Clara was at the height of her fame, performing regularly and attracting a large fan base. All the spotlight was on her, and Marco was growing increasingly jealous. Victor decided to dig deeper into Clara and Marco's relationship. He sought out Clara's old friends who had witnessed her meteoric rise in career. Clara was at the height of her fame, performing regularly and attracting a large fan base. All the spotlight was on her, and Marco was growing increasingly jealous. One day, in a fit of jealousy, Marco accidentally saw a strange man bringing Clara home. The scene was like a punch in the face, driving Marco crazy. He couldn't bear it, feeling like the whole world was collapsing. When he got home, in a fit of anger and confusion, he interrogated Clara. "What did you do to him?" Marco shouted. Clara was surprised and confused. She tried to explain. "It was nothing, Marco. My car broke down today, he just gave me a ride. It was nothing." But Marco didn't believe her at all. His jealousy blinded him to the truth. "You're lying to me, aren't you? I can't trust a word you say anymore," he growled. Clara felt so confused by Marco's ambiguous love. She didn't understand why he didn't trust her, and his control became more and more suffocating. The conflict between them became more and more intense. She felt like she was in an iron cage, unable to breathe and unable to be true to herself. The argument broke out. Clara decided that she could no longer continue this kind of love. "I can't live like this anymore, Marco. I need space, I need freedom." she shouted, her eyes filled with tears and exhaustion. Her words were like a knife stabbing straight into Marco's heart, but instead of trying to convince her, in his mind full of pain and jealousy, he began to have a crazy idea: if he couldn't control Clara, then he would truly own her. A few days later, one night after a dazzling performance, Clara was on her way home with joy still shining in her eyes when suddenly a car rushed towards her from afar. Before she could realize what was happening, she felt a strong impact, and everything around her quickly turned dark. When Clara woke up, she felt sore and dizzy, but the worst was yet to come. When she opened her eyes, the bright light made her frown. Clara realized she was in a hospital, surrounded by the unfamiliar sounds of machines and the nurses. She tried to sit up, but the sharp pain in her leg forced her to lie still. A doctor entered, his expression serious. "Clara, I regret to inform you that your leg is seriously injured. We cannot guarantee that you will ever be able to perform as before," the doctor said carefully, his every word like a knife cutting deep into her soul. Clara was devastated. Her passion for dancing, which she had worked so hard to build, was now slipping away. Tears welled up in her eyes as she thought of her performances, her dreams. She couldn't believe this was happening to her, especially since everyone knew that Clara was a brilliant dancer. Now the spotlight would no longer shine on her. What hurt Clara more was the confusion in her mind about what had happened. Whose car was it? She suddenly remembered the last moment before the accident, the shadow of the car, and the familiar image that she could not ignore. Clara's heart turned cold when she realized it was Marco who drove into her. The pain in her heart was not only due to physical trauma, but also mental trauma. Clara was devastated, not only because her future was threatened, but because of the feeling of betrayal from the person she once loved. She felt like everything was collapsing around her, like Marco's shadow had covered her life. The doctor left, leaving Clara sitting quietly in the hospital room, her heart heavy. She knew she needed to leave Marco. After recovering, she immediately changed her phone number, cut off all contact with Marco and all her friends, and quietly left without a trace. After reading the file, Victor felt a surge of anger. He had never expected that the woman he trusted would suffer such great pain. But at the same time, he also felt admiration for Clara's extraordinary willpower. She had overcome everything to stand firm, to find joy in life again. Victor decides to protect Clara and Alex from Marco. He hires a team of professional bodyguards, increases the security of the mansion, and warns Clara about the potential danger. He also secretly searches for information about Marco, determined to bring him to justice. Meanwhile, Alex was improving in ballet. He won many awards and competitions, becoming Victor's pride. But more than that, Victor realized that Alex had regained the passion and confidence that he had lost. One evening, Victor threw a small party to celebrate Alex's success. Clara, in a pure white dress, looked more radiant than ever. Dancing with Alex, she exuded elegance and charm. In that moment, Victor realized that he loved Clara. His love was not just admiration, but also respect and gratitude. Clara had brought light into his and Alex's lives, helping them find happiness again. However, Clara did not know this. After much searching, Marco finally tracked down Clara. He discovered that she was living under the guise of a maid at Victor Sterling's mansion. His anger and hatred rose stronger than ever. He was determined to take revenge on Clara, to take her back and destroy everything she had. Marco began to secretly follow Clara and Victor's family. He recorded their every move, learned about their habits and schedules. He knew that Alex was Clara's weak point, and he would exploit that to achieve his goals. He decided to act. He knew that Clara took Alex for a walk in the nearby park every afternoon. He would be waiting for them there. The next afternoon, Clara and Alex went for a walk in the park as usual. Marco hid behind a tree, watching them. He saw Clara and Alex laughing and joking happily, as if nothing could upset them. He couldn't bear the sight. Marco came out of hiding, walking towards Clara and Alex. Clara recognized Marco. She was terrified, trying to shield Alex. "Marco, what are you doing here?" Clara asked, her voice trembling. I came to take you home, Clara, Marco said, his voice cold. You belong to me. No, Marco, I don't belong to anyone, Clara said, her voice firm. You and I are done, I'm never going back to you. You have no choice, Marco said, advancing on Clara, his eyes menacing. Alex was frightened, the boy ran to hug Clara tightly. Don't hurt my mother, the boy said, his voice trembling. Marco stopped, looking at Alex, a malicious glint in his eyes. Your mother? He asked, his voice full of sarcasm. She's not your mother. She's my mother, Alex said, his voice firm. And I won't let anyone hurt her. Alex lunged at Marco, trying to push him away from Clara. Marco was surprised, he took a step back. But he quickly regained his composure, he pushed Alex to the ground. Clara screamed, she rushed towards Alex, trying to protect the boy. Marco grabbed Clara's hand, he pulled her closer. You will pay for what you have done, Marco said, his voice filled with hatred. Just then, Victor appeared. He had been watching Marco from afar, he knew he would cause trouble. He rushed towards Marco, punching him hard in the face. Marco fell to the ground, dazed. Victor pulled Clara and Alex away from Marco. He called the police, who came and arrested Marco. Clara and Alex hugged each other, sobbing. Victor hugged Clara and Alex, saying, "It's all over now." Clara looked at Victor, touched by his concern. She knew that he was a man she could trust. After Marco was arrested, Clara and Alex's life gradually returned to peace. Victor increased the security of the mansion, ensuring that no one could violate their safety. However, the recent incident left scars on Clara and Alex's hearts. Clara, despite her efforts to appear strong, is haunted by Marco's threats. She fears that he will seek revenge, even in prison. Alex also becomes quieter, suffering from nightmares and worrying about his mother's safety. Victor notices Clara and Alex's insecurities. He decides to take them on a vacation to a private island where they can temporarily forget their worries and enjoy some peaceful time together. On the island, Clara and Alex gradually regained their balance. They walked on the beach together, swam in the clear blue water and participated in water sports activities. Victor was always by their side, caring and attentive. He created a happy and warm atmosphere, helping Clara and Alex dispel their fears. During their days on the island, Victor and Clara had a lot of time to talk and share. Victor told Clara about his life, about the difficulties and challenges he had experienced. Clara also gradually opened up. She told Victor about her past, about the dreams and ambitions she had to give up. Victor admired Clara's strength and courage. He realized that she was a special woman, not only beautiful but also strong and compassionate. Victor's feelings for Clara grew deeper and deeper. One evening, as Clara and Victor were sitting on the beach watching the sunset, Victor took Clara's hand and said, "Clara, do you know, ever since you came into my life has changed completely. You have brought light and joy to Alex and me. I love you, Clara." Clara was touched by Victor's confession. She looked deep into his eyes and said, "Victor, I love you too. You are the kindest and warmest man I have ever met. You have always been there for me and Alex. I feel safe and happy when I am with you." Victor held Clara in his arms, his hand gently stroking her long, soft hair. The warmth from his body radiated warmth. Clara slightly raised her face, her eyes filled with anticipation, as if time had stopped at that moment. As their lips touched, an electric current ran through every cell of their bodies. The kiss was light at first, but quickly became more intense. Clara closed her eyes, letting the sublime feeling wash away all her worries, leaving only the union of two hearts. Their tongues lightly brushed against each other, making their breathing even more rapid, not just a kiss but a whole intersection of desires and dreams. After the vacation, Clara and Alex returned to the villa. Their lives gradually returned to normal, but now, they were no longer alone. Victor was always by their side, protecting and loving them. Marco was sentenced to prison, he had to pay for the crimes he had committed. Clara and Alex could finally live a peaceful and happy life. Victor sat in his office looking through the window, seeing Alex and Clara playing happily together, a happy and satisfied smile on his lips. For years, he had lived in a shell of perfection, where every step was calculated, every emotion was suppressed. His world was cold numbers, detailed plans, and immutable principles. Clara's appearance was like a spring breeze, blowing away all limits, bringing experiences that he had never had, even with his late wife. He suddenly understood that he had lost too many beautiful things, just because he was too absorbed in pursuing material values. If you find this story interesting, please leave your feelings in the comment section. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our videos.